There we go. We
Yep.
are live.
Cool.
Can you see us on the screen? Welcome everybody to this week's Coffee with Doc. This week is a double header, so we're super excited about that. Normally, as you know, I don't do a whole big intro, but I am going to say a couple words before we get started. Today, Doc is with John Riley of the Freedom Flag Foundation, and you'll learn all about the Freedom Flag Foundation. But I'm just going to mention up front that we will be discussing September 11th and the events of that day in New York and the Pentagon and around the US. So should you need to step away for this coffee, we absolutely appreciate it. We were lucky enough to get our YouTube channel up and running this week. So over the weekend, we'll post the recording of this onto YouTube so you can view it privately if that's the best, safest place for you to do so. Otherwise, we're hoping to have a really good, really positive conversation, but also know that sometimes somebody may need to step away, and we absolutely appreciate that. So that is all the words I'm going to say today. I'm going to turn it over to Doc and John, and I look forward to hearing from you both.
Thank you, Christy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We are delighted to have John Riley with us this afternoon. And unlike most of our visitors for Coffee with Doc, John is not active in EMS nor in the fire service, but he is pivotal in an organization called the Freedom Flag Foundation. And I'd like John to start out by telling us what prompted him to get involved with this, and then I'm probably going to ask him some more questions, but for the most part this afternoon, I'm just going to sit here, shut up, and listen. John, over to you, my friend. How to get started?
Okay, thank you, Doc and Christy. It's a privilege to be here, really humbled to be part of your coffee talks here. So I am the president of the Freedom Flag Foundation. We're an all-volunteer organization headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. And long story short, my connection with 9/11 is unfortunately a very close one. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, it was Tuesday morning. I think most folks remember, bright blue sky. I was at work. I'm a traffic engineer, and I was sitting at my desk and got a phone call from a good friend of mine who I grew up with here in the Richmond area, asking about our mutual friend, Doug. Doug worked in the World Trade Center, and Doug was another one of our great friends growing up, graduated with me from high school together. He went to University of Virginia and then took a big time job with Cantor Fitzgerald. And the last time I had seen him was at my wedding in April of 2001. He was one of my groomsmen. And I had visited him before, and I knew his trading desk was way high up in one of the towers. I did not know which one. But my friend told me that something happened at the World Trade Center and a plane had hit one of the towers. And hey, did I remember which floor and which tower Doug worked in? So that set off obviously a chaotic morning and day, trying to figure out what was happening. We're about 90 miles south of the Pentagon. So by the time the towers were both hit and we understood we were under attack, then it was coming closer to us. And when it was all over, unfortunately found out that my friend did not make it out. He was above the first impact. And he did get one phone call out to his mom to tell her something had happened and the building was filling with smoke. And he didn't think he was going to make it out. So fast forward for a number of years, I was 27 on 9/11 and had kids a few years later. I was obviously newlywed. Not unbeknownst to me, down the street, a gentleman named Richard Melito, who's a restaurant owner and a brother of a Marine from Vietnam era and son of a school teacher. He's watching the events unfold, and he's hearing America say, we need to never forget what happened. We need to remember the victims. We need to remember the first responders, the firefighters, the incredible toll, fire, police, rescue, Port Authority, the heroes, Flight 93, who fought back. And obviously the Pentagon's on Virginia soil. He's a Virginian, and with his brother having come back from Vietnam with a lot of PTSD and being part of a forgotten generation of soldiers, really, he said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make sure we never forget. I'm going to put a flag in my restaurant and call it the Freedom Flag. And the symbolism will represent sort of the who, what, and where of 9/11. And about 8 years later, he was in the process of trying to build a monument in the suburbs of Richmond. And being an engineer, that's where our paths intersected. Our firm was asked to look into the engineering of the monument. And a buddy of mine comes down the hall one day. This is in 2008. It says, there's this guy that's got this 9/11 flag, and I think we might help him out with a project. And hey, didn't you lose one of your best friends on 9/11? And I said, yeah, I sure did. And so anybody that's had a loss in their life, you know what it's like to have a void or a hole in your heart, if you will. And I think I was searching a little bit for a way to fill that for my friend. There was unfortunately no remains, no cemetery or grave to go visit. That's an unfortunate reality for many of the victims and their families from 9/11. And I said, I want to get involved, not just in this project, but I want to get involved with this organization and see what they're all about. So my kids at the time were very young, and I didn't really grasp the importance of the education piece that was driving the creator of the flag's ideas. But he knew that far into the future, it was going to be hard to remember what happened. People were going to try to move on. Another generation of Americans would be born. And as we talked before the show started, well over 50 million kids have been born in the United States since 9/11. And 9/11's everywhere in our culture, in our vocabulary. But if you didn't live it, it can be very confusing to understand what happened. So today I'm the president. My kids are now high school down to middle school. And I really have sort of seen the evolution of how important it is to educate and remember. And that's kind of the short version of how I'm here.
Okay. While you were talking, just so you know, I just ordered one of your flags. I have I have a flagpole in my front yard with an American flag on top. I think I'll put this one underneath the American flag
Sure.
instead of what's there now.
freedomflagfoundation.org, before I forget, for anyone.
I'm on the website right now, and yep, I got it.
Thank you.
Now, so fast forward a little bit. What is the vision of the foundation in terms of the things behind you? The book
Sure.
you shared with me a little while ago. What's the vision in terms of where this goes from here?
Well, the original idea from the gentleman who sketched it, and he's a big visionary, was to, when he saw the reaction, he put the flag on his restaurant wall. He said, I'm going to put it in my restaurant. It doesn't have any words on it. So when someone asks me, hey, what is that flag? I can explain the 10 elements. And so just briefly, the blue background is All Americans United for Freedom. The pentagonal bars, obviously, is the Pentagon, but not just that. It's five branches of the military: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. The white star is all who lived and died for freedom. So a lot of our servicemen and women have been deployed and obviously paid the ultimate sacrifice since 9/11. And then the twin red stripes in the middle, the broad red stripes, represent the Twin Towers. The skinny stripes on the outside represent Shanksville and the Pentagon. And then the three white stripes represent first responders. So educators, he was next to a high school, educators and students said, hey, what's that flag? He told them. They said, how can I get one? So it quickly it went viral before viral was a thing, if you will, way before social media, word of mouth, newspaper, radio. So he created a foundation. He said, I'm gonna try to make this a national symbol of remembrance for 9/11. So that's the big goal. He organized a foundation, and here we are 19 years later. We are in the Virginia Code as the Virginia flag of remembrance for 9/11. So the Pentagon's in Arlington County, Virginia. And Virginia being the home of the Freedom Flag, there's freedom flags in over 1,000 schools in Virginia. That's over 50%. There are freedom flags now in 49 states. And how you make something a national symbol, that's really, there's no blueprint for that, Doc. But what we saw in Virginia that worked was, number one, put the flags in front of the kids and put it in educators' hands. And as time passed and we realized, especially around the 15th anniversary, you've got kids in high school who were 1, 2, 3 on 9/11. And now all of K through 12 is post 9/11. So how can you make 9/11 tangible? And as part of our project, we obtained a huge piece of World Trade Center steel from Tower 1. So we started sort of doing some pilot programs with local schools and said, well, we've got a flag that tells a story, but this is something really unique and dynamic. What if we put pieces of steel in the kids' hands? This weighs about 10 pounds. This is from Tower 1, 92nd through 94th floor. What if we try that? Something unique. And it was everything we expected and more. The teachers thought it was incredible. The students really grasped it. So we'd like to see that program roll out to all 50 states. We have enough steel to do it. It does take some funding. It takes a lot of holding hands and manpower to move these packages and find the teachers that want to do this, and a lot of logistics, but it's very feasible. So that worked in Virginia, and the groundswell led to the Virginia Code receiving the Freedom Flag, section 1-510 of the Virginia Code. So we said, well, let's just try to do that in all 50 states and see what happens.
Cool. And are you going to be getting more pieces of steel from the remains of the towers and cutting those up?
Yeah, so we have about 3,000 pounds.
Okay.
So you can do the math. You could theoretically cut 300 of those. We're going to actually save a large piece for our monument project. We've cut over 20 already. So, and we have some volunteers who are really waiting for a call from us to say, hey, we've got a plan to do this and we need 30 more pieces, and we'll make it happen, I think, in the first quarter of next year. We'd like to see these kits go out ideally early summer at the latest, so there's some time for teachers to kind of get the gears moving. We would have done it this year except for COVID, so you have to put your hands on it. So we're sort of trusting, fingers crossed, that the vaccine rolls out, and trusting that we'll sort of be back to normal or some sort of new normal next year, where kids are in the class and we can do it. So there's no time frame to become a national symbol. We're sort of all about the process, and we believe if we stick to the process, we think good things will happen. People will see what we're doing, and as time passes, obviously next year's the 20th anniversary, and as people see an entire generation of kids growing up who don't really know what happened on 9/11, they'll see the ease with which a flag, a simple symbol, can be used. We think it might happen.
From my perspective, what I really like about what you're doing is there's a police officer memorial in DC every year at the Capitol. There is a fallen firefighter memorial service done wherever. There are various other services done for the military. What I find interesting about this is you're pulling all of us together,
Right,
under one pennant, under one flag. I think that's really strong. And I would think that you'll get a lot of support from old codgers like me, but also some of the departments around the country may really get behind this. I've got some people I'm going to tell a little bit about this to, who kind of are in influential positions with certain organizations, and you might find you have some more new friends. Tell me about the book.
sure, I will. And while I'm talking, if you Google South Burlington, Vermont Freedom Flag, you'll see a fire station that one of our board members, I didn't mention this earlier, but Clarence Singleton, retired fire lieutenant, FDNY, also a Marine, Purple Heart from Vietnam. Amazing story that he can tell. He responded after retiring. he responded from his apartment in Brooklyn to Ground Zero as a volunteer and was nearly killed. He's on our board.
He wasn't the only retired FDNY guy that showed up at Ground Zero. There were
Everybody,
lots of them.
everybody went in. Everybody that could muster. He's on our board. When he calls fire stations around the country and says, "Hey, we've got this flag that's a great symbol. If you're doing a 9/11 remembrance," in most cases he gets a, "Hey, we're on board." So, but this book, so it's called Unfurling the Freedom Flag. These just came in last week. We have 100 first edition. Our entire board is signing them. So we're not done signing them yet. So you got to give us another week or two. Tonight I'm going to take them by one of our board members' houses. A beautiful book written by one of our other board members, who's an award-winning teacher in elementary school, Tara Crone, and illustrated by a high school student who's her neighbor, who just went off to art school. And we realized that the story, it takes a little while to tell the freedom flag story from a sketch on a napkin. I don't think I mentioned that, but the original freedom flag was drawn in a restaurant by Mr. Melito on a napkin. And the idea evolved from a napkin to the flag on the wall. And then it went across Virginia. So this book, I hope this works out. These are really neat illustrations of him sketching the flag and how it sort of came to life. So this tells the story as the flag becomes whole, and then it encourages folks to use it to remember. And so it can go across the country. We're all volunteers. We don't have a budget or time or resources, but for those who want to read it, say they homeschool their kids, they want to read it at home, teachers can use it as a supplemental resource, age appropriate for K through 5 or 6, and really up through middle and high school. We hope it'll end up in some libraries. One of the features I want to make sure I mention, two points really. 9/11 can be really misunderstood by some. Obviously, it happened in the United States, but we're really working hard as a foundation to tell the whole story, the international story of what happened and who was impacted. So one of our opening pages is a picture of 90 flags that represent the nations of all the citizens who lost at least one person on 9/11. It's incredible. Here's a pop quiz for you, Doc. Do you know how many countries there are in the world?
Not sure, but 90 is a hell of a lot in terms of the people that were lost at Ground Zero.
A little over 180. So almost half the countries in the world at the time
Lost
someone. And remember that 9/11, the events unfolded in the morning here, which means in Europe it was afternoon, in Asia it was evening or night, and it's estimated that it was one of the most watched events or watched in near real-time events in world history. Literally billions of people saw it unfold. So amongst the victims, obviously people from all over the country and all over the world, but I do want to make special note, it's our goal to be inclusive and tell the whole story. And Muslim Americans responded and volunteered at Ground Zero. Many innocent were killed. And I just want to say, for those that see this flag, we have to take special caution how we use it, how we talk about it. 20 years later, almost, the emotions have sort of settled down, but there was unfortunately a lot of backlash toward the Muslim American community, and that was not right. Many, like I said, many innocent people who had nothing to do with terrorism responded and gave and sacrificed. And so that's part of the story. We talk about being united all together for freedom, but just like after Pearl Harbor, I think Japanese Americans paid a tough price. So I just want to make sure we recognize that and explain that as part of the whole story. So the book is something that's just a new project for us, also on our website.
I'll bet I can
And
find
we
that.
think, that's something that we'll include with our packets that we send.
Yeah. One of the things that I just share with you for thought is that 9/11 was a short-term event in 2001.
Right.
We are losing every week more and more firefighters, law enforcement officers, EMS personnel that were exposed to the toxins we had at Ground Zero.
Yeah.
Most of us get a free physical exam every year, and I sort of jokingly say, people ask me why, and I said, well, they just want to see when I'm going to get the mesothelioma. So but there are a lot of folks that are now gone as a result of their service at Ground Zero, and I hope that's something that we continue to reinforce in the kids' minds in terms of the history of 9/11 and what followed and the troops that have been killed since then, going after ISIS and Al-Shabaab and whoever else we were chasing around the world. It's important stuff.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. That's the message we're trying to figure out. How do we incorporate into this story? Because the three white stripes certainly were first responders, not just who lost their lives, but every day, right? I think we all need to understand as we go about our daily lives, whenever there's danger and we're trying to get away from the danger, there are people 24/7 ready to run towards it.
Right.
And the perpetual losses are mounting for sure. I think they now exceed the actual death toll on 9/11. And it continues, and it's part of our story. I'm trying to figure out how to really find the number and incorporate it into our story, but it absolutely needs to be told because it's an incredible toll that just continues.
Yeah, the focus for years has been on 343, the
Right.
343 FDNY firefighters that were killed that day, but I constantly follow the fatalities that have occurred since then, and it's stunning, just stunning.
Yeah.
What else do you want to share with us, John, in terms of what we can do? I think I foresee what might be described in business as a strategic relationship or a strategic partnership between the Freedom Flag Foundation and the National EMS Museum, because we're both wanting to preserve the history of what we're all about.
Right.
And so I see a great partnership here, I think, developing. What else do you want to share with us about the Freedom Flag Foundation and going forward?
Well, we rely on partners in many ways. So we have really very few resources. There's 11 of us. We have a flag. We have a limited supply of steel, and now we have a book and a story that goes with all of that. And that's really it. We don't even have a computer. We don't have a vehicle. We don't have an office. It's a story about really a snapshot in America. That's what the flag represents. Some people say, well, that flag doesn't apply anymore. Or, that doesn't tell the whole story of what's happened since. Well, it can be applied to it. The continued loss of life, et cetera, of first responders. But, it's a snapshot in time. This is how America looked and felt right after 9/11, unlike anything in my lifetime. And I grew up kind of a World War II junkie. My dad was in the Army, my uncles, granddad. I grew up kind of playing with World War II figures, right? And studying Pearl Harbor and D-Day and all those things. And this is my generation's Pearl Harbor. And God forbid it ever happen again. I think that's the big message. Is some say, well, talking about 9/11 is too sensitive or too offensive, and we're not here to offend, but we all need to understand our history. And the flag is a platform. The conversations about history can go any different direction you want. That's not really for us to dictate. We've seen marketing professors and teachers use the flag as a branding tool. English teachers use the flag to study symbolism. And so really, we're just about the flag. We do some educational initiatives. We don't write curriculum. A lot of folks get confused. Are we going too far with the schools? Really, no, that's not our goal. Our goal is to put the flag in the hands of folks who want to use it to remember and teach. And in limited cases, the steel as well. So that's one of the key items as well. I think the scrutiny on education today is higher and unlike anything that it's ever been. So we just try to stick to a very sort of a narrow story. And whenever we tell that story, ideas pop, partnerships form, and it seems like we continue to be propelled forward along that path to a national symbol. So
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
Okay, John, thank you very much for the time. I think we've told part of your story. I think there's more to come. Let's see if we can get my executive director back online. Aha, there she is.
Here I am.
Christy, do you have anything you want to add?
Ironically, yes, I do.
Oh, I'm shocked.
We have kind of delved into my realm of educational background. So those that are watching that may not know, my PhD is actually in the use of objects in remembrance and healing. And I would encourage everybody, one, to participate in the National EMS Museum, because as we continue to grow, we are going to continue to build up exhibits that feature objects to help those who have used them, who have participated with them as a patient, as a bystander. It will help you process experiences and bring you together as a community. And I think the Freedom Flag, one thing that's always drawn me to this project, John and I have known each other for a few years now, is that component of an object representing an experience for us all, and an object in which we can center ourselves and process, grieve, and continue to grow together as a larger community as a whole. So I promise this dissertation is going to be done, and I will share more as I get to the other side of the PhD. But I think it's really important for us all to understand the role of objects in our lives and the role that objects can play in our memory, in our healing, in our ability to form community and move forward in very interesting and very productive ways. And certainly the steel, the flag, and the memories we all share of 9/11. I'm the youngest on this crowd here. It was my, I graduated from high school in 2001. So my first year living out of the house, first month, September 11th happened. So I had to define my adulthood by September 11th, which is a whole different experience than John had or that Doc had in working and responding there. So we have three kind of generations of experiences here. But maybe this is the root of my desire to be in museums and work on healing and memory through objects, is maybe it's rooted in September 11th. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I could talk another 2 or 3 hours on objects and healing, but we'll save that for EMS World or something a little more exciting.
John, I've got one last question for you. I'm looking over your right shoulder. There's a framed image of the Freedom Flag, and it looks like it's got explanatory information on it as to what all the parts of that flag represent. Is that correct?
Yes, and that should reflect what I explained earlier. It sure is.
Right. I'm just wondering if we could get a copy of that, or a framed copy of that we could add to our displays that we have here and there around the country.
Yes.
I think it would be a really important part of what the story is we're trying to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Anything
And then
else,
I'm
Christy?
just going to say that we will be working on a 9/11 commemorative exhibit here at the National EMS Museum. So if you were a responder or related to a responder, friends with a responder, colleague of, who may wish to share their story, whether publicly as part of the exhibit or privately for the archives for future researchers, please reach out to us, social media, phone call, on the website, email me, director@emsmuseum.org. You can reach out to John too if you happen to be fiddling around Freedom Flag Foundation. We're going to work very closely on this, hoping to represent as many voices as we can in this exhibit. So we know there were a number of first responders there. Some have lost their lives since, and we'd like to capture as many of those stories over the past 20 years that we can. So please reach out. Happy to take phone calls, to have chats. We can set up Zoom conversations, but this exhibit will be launching for September 11th next year as a 20th anniversary commemoration. So we need your help to get it kind of robustly told, include as many stories as we can. So please come out and chat with us.
Great.
Thanks, Christy. John, thanks again for your time today.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
you.
Enjoyed getting acquainted and learning about
Doc.
the foundation.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doc and future Doc.
Yeah, almost Doc. Let's not
All right.
that fate. All right. We will catch you all tomorrow, same time, same place. And we have Ron Morin from Maine with us. If you don't know Ron, you're going to want to know Ron. So tune in tomorrow. It's 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central. Keep doing the math. Grab a late lunch on the Pacific Coast. And thank you all very much. We'll see you tomorrow.